I think it was just me like failing over and over and over again. I come to college, like I failed so many times over and over again, not being the best player, my coach is trying to kick me off the team, me proving myself, and then getting injured like 3 years in a row. And then I was just going through the games and watching the games, and I'm thinking, why am I here? Experiences came at me and they kicked my ass, and kind of had to grow up a little bit. Put me in a good position now. I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh when I was a kid, so I was like, okay, I'll try out Magic the Gathering because I heard it's adult Yu-Gi-Oh. Picked up a Prosper pre-con and went to Commander Night and fell in love with it immediately. Yeah, I fell in love with Magic after that, 100%.
Hugh Watanabe is a Japanese-American pro basketball player who went from playing basketball in the United States to playing for the Ryukyu Golden Kings in Japan's B.League. He's also an Olympian and plays for the Japanese national team. At 6 feet 9 inches, Hugh is definitely the tallest Magic player I've ever spoken to. In this conversation, we talk about his incredible journey from Hawaii to Okinawa. Hugh also makes some insanely original analogies between the game of basketball and the game of Magic the Gathering. Enjoy. Hugh, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, you know. Had our first practice here in Utsunomiya, Japan. We're starting to get into things with EASL, the East Asian Super League. I don't know if you've seen that. I know you're an NBA fan, James, but have you seen like Jalen Green or like Meta World Peace like promoting the East Asian Super League?
A little bit. I have to admit I haven't watched the actual games, but I have definitely heard of the league through players like that.
Right. So it's actually like the first annual kickoff, I think. And they're doing like this little tournament thing here in Japan, and we play tomorrow, and yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think right off the bat, I'll just get right into it, Hugh. Like, how did you even find yourself in this league or on the national team? Like, I guess there's a whole bunch of questions I have around how you made it, how you got to where you are today. But maybe like I would just start with that, you know, like what are the circumstances that made you basically play ball professionally in Japan?
Yeah,
I guess is the question.
So I'm half Japanese. So my mother is from Japan, born and raised in Tokyo, and my dad's from Oregon. And because of that, I'm a dual citizen. So I have two passports, American and Japanese, obviously. And because of the loophole of like in Japan, you're only allowed 3 imports and the rest have to be Japanese. Because I'm 6'9" and have like a 30.
They say you can't teach height. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
It's because I'm 6'9", 35-inch vertical, 7-foot wingspan. Like, there's not a lot of Japanese players that can do that. So, you know, it kind of just fell into place after I got to college and met some people and made some connections. And yeah, it all happened really fast. And after 4 years of college, I'm here in Japan now. So it's kind of sick. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot to unpack there, but okay, let's just start with this because I it's like this always happens. Like when I get super curious and I end up wanting to ask like 10 questions, but I have to settle down and just figure out what's the one thing to ask next, right? I want to ask like because I know that maybe we'll go back even farther. Like I know you play all kinds of sports, right? I remember doing a little bit of research on you. Like you used to play volleyball.
Right.
Maybe that was before you became 6'9" or whatever.
Right.
But like, what made you even like get into basketball? Was it like some kind of growth spurt, or was it like just some sort of passion for hoops? Like, what was it exactly? If we go back then,
honestly, I think it's because my dad was just obsessed with sports. But not in like the super toxic dad way. It's more like it just kind of runs in the family. So my grandfather.
Okay. So it's not like the Williams dad or anything. It was like healthy.
It was healthy. No, my dad's not like, you know, taking me to the court and like you can't leave until you make 3,000 shots. It was never like that. But he was always trying to keep me and my brother busy with like just throwing us into sports. And then my mom was like, "Yeah, let's do that." But yeah, I think it just starts with. My grandfather was an NFL player for the 49ers. And then, you know, my dad just grew up around like NFL players. And then that transitioned into Tillamook, where my grandfather was a high school football coach. So it's pretty much because my dad's been around sports his whole life. And I think that really influenced, you know, his decision to just throw me and my brother to all kinds of sports, including basketball, from when I can remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing though to have parents who are supportive of what you're doing, like for example, sports or playing the piano or whatever.
Yeah.
But I always feel like, because you're the first professional athlete I've talked to on this show, there's got to be something extra, right? There's got to be something extra, like in terms of your mental or your willpower that makes you go the extra mile, right? Like obviously, I know everyone has different circumstances, but like, do you think a lot of that came from yourself, or it's from your dad, or it's like a mixture of different things, including coaching or other things?
Right. So like with like the mental part, I think any like professional in any profession has to be like a little bit geared differently for their specific thing. Or like even you with this podcast, like you're super consistent with it. You have to be geared a little bit differently to do that. So yeah, I think for me with sports though, I think it was just me like failing over and over and over again. Because in high school, I was just in Hawaii. There's also not a lot of 6'9" guys, so I was just better than everyone. And then yeah, come to college, like I failed like so many times over and over again, showing up to camp out of shape, not being the best player, my coaches trying to kick me off the team, me proving myself, and then getting injured like 3 years in a row. I don't know, you kind of have to restructure and grow up your mindset just to survive. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there too, but with the injuries and all the stuff that I just said, but I'm not special. I'm like pretty average. I think I learned through experiences. I'm not like Kobe Bryant, who was like, yeah, 13 years old, I knew I wanted to be the best player ever. I'm not like Kobe like that. I'm pretty average. Like,
there's only one Kobe.
Yeah,
so,
there is only one Kobe. Never liked that. So it was more like experiences came at me and they kicked my ass, and kind of had to grow up a little bit and put me in a good position now.
Yeah. So it sounds like when you were growing up in Hawaii or doing basketball or sports at that time, you were far above everybody else, right? I mean, I guess the analogy I can make is like in my life, it's like, when I was in high school or in elementary school, maybe I was like good at certain subjects, and because your competition is the local kids around you. So it's like you could actually be the best at English literature or math.
Right.
Not that I was the best at math, it's just a random example.
Right.
But then obviously it's like in sports or even in school, it's like then you go to college and it's a whole nother level, literally.
Yeah.
So now you're like, now the competition, I mean, I think academics is a competition too. So it's like everyone around you is just like who are these people? These people are so gifted.
Right.
They're from all walks of life, and like the best of wherever county or place they came from.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, like, when you went into that transition into college, because obviously you had certain gifts, like physical gifts, right? But were there certain low points where you just felt like you felt like you almost wanted to walk away, or like it sounded like ups and downs, but I wanted to kind of hear from you, like what it was like, just that whole learning curve.
Yeah. So my first year in college was probably the hardest. I showed up out of shape because I was super anxious about going. So when I get anxious, like I start getting into my own head, and then I start shutting down, and I won't do anything. I'll just think about it, and it will keep like compounding over and over again, which is just the definition of anxiety. And I didn't know how to handle it as a 18-year-old. So I showed up super out of shape, and we had a senior center who was like 7'3", 265 pounds, super athletic, you know what I mean? From Germany, like he just sees me, he's just like, you really show up out of shape, and like you're gonna do this to the team. And he just like took it so personally and took it out on me every single day.
Oh, I see. Every day in practice or whatever
Every
it was.
day in practice or weights or just anything. It was just like constantly just being shitted on. Like through basketball, verbally and that's kind of just the culture, I guess, in basketball. But yeah, and then there was also some other things with like teammates and my ex at the time, and they pulled a prank on me, and I didn't react well to it, and fell into like a super deep depression for a couple weeks, and they actually did send me home for 2 weeks, and it was that was kind of like the start of them trying to kick me off the team, because I was mentally bringing a lot of baggage now and not part of the team, and it's not strictly about basketball, and basketball and mental health is not really a good combo yet, I think. But it's also like a huge door opened because of me being sent home, is they wanted to kick me off the team. So when the Japan national team reached out and said like, hey, can we have him for a couple of weeks? They're like, yeah, take him. Get him out of here. Take him, bro. Like, get him out of here.
Oh, man. Yeah, I guess it's easy to laugh at it in retrospect. But at the time, I'm sure you were feeling not good about everything.
No, at the time, it was a huge roller coaster. And super grateful, though, about that camp, because, again, I showed up out of shape because 2 weeks of depression, can't get out of bed. Like, you can't. I don't know if you've ever had depression before, but yeah, it was the first time I ever dealt with it, and went to the camp where I'm like forced to move, forced to do things, and it kind of snapped me out of it a little bit. Yeah, so yeah, the world, God, whatever you want to believe in, works in mysterious ways. Yeah, that was a weird one, and that was probably the closest I've ever been to wanting to quit. And then obviously this past year, also thought about quitting because I had 3 surgeries in a row on my elbow.
I mean, I have to say, unfortunately, I can't relate to that, because I mean, obviously, because I'm not a professional athlete. I have been injured before, but that's like, I'm playing pickup ball and I sprained my ankle, but that's like nothing compared to actually like having to get surgery or affecting like your ability to do a job, right? Or the job is basketball.
Right.
Like, I'm just wondering, like, because there's so much adversity you described. Like, how did you train yourself to climb back from that? Because like, I guess there's an alternate universe where Hugh Watanabe or Hugh Hogland like just stopped playing basketball altogether like 3-4 years ago, right?
It's weird because I think it's mainly because of the support system I have. Because I think alone, I would have been way tougher. I don't know if that alternate universe you said, like if I was doing this alone, I wouldn't have been there. But my parents are so supportive. My brother is super inspirational in his own right, and he's always supportive and looks up to me, and obviously friends. Yeah, I mean, it's all pretty much because of them that I'm able to like talk to you now as a basketball player, and even as a Magic player, because Magic players usually are privileged in their own rights to even play the game. Yeah, it's really because they had my back the entire time that I'm kind of here right now. Yeah.
Was it hard opening up to your family, just maybe as a man or as a person, right? Like, is it hard to, was that a process, or was it fairly straightforward?
I think during the depressive stage, no, not really. It's because I'm a vegetable and can't really think for myself. But this past year has been really interesting because I had to live with my parents for 10 months because I needed to get like medical care from the US instead of Japan. And that was interesting because you're forging a new relationship with your parents, as maybe some 20-year-olds do when they have to move back in with their parents after college. It's like you're setting new boundaries and you're having real discussions and actually trying to move forward with your life along with them. You know what I mean? It's a weird process. I can't really describe it very well, but
it's kind of like a reset.
It is a reset.
It's like you've already lived abroad, or you lived outside on your own.
Yeah,
and it's like it's kind of like now you're in a position of almost like going back in time, kind of vulnerability where they have to be your parents as if you were 10 years old or something.
Right. Especially because I didn't have any function of my right arm for like months at a time. So they really had to help me out with like.
Oh my God. Are you right-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Okay. So how did you how did you even deal with not being able to use your right arm for 10 months or however long it was? Like, what did you have to relearn? Like everything?
Everything, like to eating food, putting on clothes, wiping your ass, like everything had to be done with your left hand.
Yeah.
It's weird, but luckily, like I'm a little bit goofy handed because I throw a baseball with my left and I do almost everything in basketball with my left except shoot. So
Okay.
luckily it wasn't that big of a deal, but I could only imagine for people who are really right-handed, that would have been tough for them.
So you learn how to like use chopsticks with your left hand and like do everything with your left.
It's a cool little trick that you could do on a date or like with friends. Like you're just like, okay, if you can't use chopsticks with your left hand, you owe me $5, and I win every single time.
The hustle or the grift.
Yep.
Yeah. During that rehab, did you even touch a basketball? Or did you just basically just like take complete time off from that?
Right.
Like, did you learn to shoot with your left hand or what?
I can shoot with my left hand now, but it was like a start and stop and kind of process. Like after the first surgery, rehab too aggressively. So I was like working out with my right hand probably like a month and a half after surgery, which was not the right decision because I had a complete radial head reconstruction with like plates and screws and the whole wazoo. So then obviously it broke again. I had to get another surgery. So you had to stop, get another surgery, wait like another 2 months, 3 months, or you start shooting again. Started that for like 2 months or 3 months, maybe 4 or 5. We were waiting a long time to try to see if it would heal. Maybe 6 months. So for 6 months, I was rehabbing and doing a little bit of basketball, but not much. And then we kind of figured out that it wouldn't heal again. So then you have to stop, get surgery again. This time, instead of reconstruction, I'm getting a replacement. And then I had to have to wait like 4 months until I could shoot again or even touch a basketball. And then start rehabbing and then start shooting. And then finally, we're finally back to playing. So it was very start and stop. You know what I mean? Frustrating, but at least we got through it.
I mean, you must have had a lot of willpower. I mean, that's like multiple surgeries. Like, how do you? What was going through your mind during that long period of like going for the second one, and like how did you like? What was your self-talk to kind of keep yourself going?
Yeah, it changes, right? Because each surgery was different in its own right. After the first surgery, I was kind of like, yeah, I'm going to come back even better, bigger, stronger, faster. It was really like positive self-talk, and I wanted to get back as quick as possible. And that's probably why we rehabbed so fast, is because I was like trying to fake my way into thinking I was healthy. And after the second surgery, it was like complete despair. I was like, damn, I broke it again. And the second surgery was a lot harder than the first one on me personally, like physically. And then I was out for season, and I was just going to the games and watching the games, and I'm thinking, why am I here? You know what I mean? It's like, why am I here? Like, they're playing the games that I have no effect on. I want to be here for my teammates, but at the same time, I'm alone, miserable, can't use my right hand. Very, very, like, very isolated.
Yeah.
And then they sent me home to get help in the U.S. because we realized it wasn't going to heal. And then after the third surgery, it was like, I kind of get how to do this now. I kind of get how to rehab my elbow. I kind of get how, if it breaks again, I'm not going to fall for, getting my hopes up and then just being absolutely, completely down. So the third one was more of a day-by-day thing, like just wake up, do what I got to do, go to sleep, wake up, do what I got to do, go to sleep. It sounds kind of depressing, but it was a lot of fun, actually, just being really present in everything that I was doing, whether it was like rehabbing, working out, playing Magic, and hanging out with friends. Like, it was a good little change up from pro basketball life.
Mm-hmm. And how's the arm now? Like, obviously, I see in your Instagram shares that you're dunking. Like, it looks like you're pretty agile. Like, is it 100% or how does it feel?
It's always sore, but that's because the
Okay.
muscles haven't been used in a year and 7 months. But there's no like sharp pain or anything. It's as normal as you could possibly be. Probably like 85 out of 100%. Probably like going back to your sprained ankle analogy with casual basketball, it's probably like after week 1 and your ankle's like, I could definitely play. And once the adrenaline goes, like I could definitely be 100%. But when I stop, it's like hurting a little bit. It's probably what my elbow feels like. Yeah.
Is that how it's always going to be, or is it like where it'll just get stronger over time?
The
How does that work?
muscles will get stronger over time, but because it's a full implant and it's metal on bone, all the cartilage that was on the radial head is gone. So eventually I'm going to have like really, I don't want to say really bad arthritis, because if my muscles are really good, then it won't come to that. But I'm definitely going to have arthritis when I'm like 40, 50, 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
You still got a bit of time before that.
Yeah.
You still got many decades of life. So, but I gotta ask, like, how did you even hurt it how did you get the injury in the first place?
Right.
It was from basketball or
It
something
was
else?
basketball. It was my first preseason game on the Ryukyu Golden Kings. And I was doing really well, but I wanted to get 10 points. This is the last 10 seconds of the game. So I go for the fast break, and I'm going for the dunk, running as hard as I can. And then the other person's team undercuts me. And I get lose my balance and get scared a little bit. So I fall like this onto the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the force just goes up your arm, up to the radial head, and the radial head exploded into 3 pieces. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a very traumatic injury. And, you know, it's kind of like what you saw with like Andrew Bogut or even Gary Payton in the most recent playoffs.
Yeah.
But they had ligament and muscle damage, and I didn't have any of that, which made my injury really freaky. And the doctors couldn't really understand it. Yeah. So.
Okay. I will definitely not try to find any clips of your injury. I remember one time, like, because I've always been a Sean Livingston fan, right? Like even back when he was a Clipper, and I saw that injury that he had on YouTube because one day I was just like kind of bored, and that is something that I would never. I want to. That's something. That's like one of the few things in life I want to unsee. You know what I mean? Like, and so I mean, you can also just tell by the way athletes respond to other athletes getting injured. It's just like, you don't wish that on anyone. So,
No.
yeah, and I feel bad now, even like bringing it up, like asking you how did you get injured, because it's like it's kind of like forcing you to like relive it in a small way, right? So yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good. I mean, probably hundreds of people have asked the same question when I'm walking around in a sling.
Oh, okay.
It's a great conversation starter, but yeah, relived it enough.
Yeah. So, how did you get involved with Magic? Did it happen for you like in college, or like who introduced you to the game? Like, what was the deal with that?
So this is after my 3rd surgery. So very recently I got into Magic. And my girlfriend at the time, who's my ex now, she used to work for Hasbro and used to design games for Hasbro. So obviously I tried out D&D first, and I was like, D&D's cool, but it's not really my jam. I like the imaginative aspect and the social aspect, but it's not really my thing. And then that just led to me looking up WotC and finding they also have another game called Magic the Gathering. And I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh when I was a kid, so I was like, okay, I'll try out Magic the Gathering because I heard it's adult Yu-Gi-Oh.
That's a good description.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah. And picked up a Prosper Precon at my local game store and went to Commander Night and fell in love with it immediately. Like the feeling of like doing Prosper things, of just like churning through and making treasures, playing stuff from exile, card advantage. It had like, even now, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Like that first like moment of like magic, of like falling in love with it. Like it was so real. Like I couldn't stop smiling, and it's like my whole entire head felt like an airhead balloon. You know the commercial where they just blow up? Yeah. It's really freaky, but yeah, I fell in love with magic after that. 100%.
Was that in the US or was it in Japan?
It was in Hawaii.
Oh, it was in Hawaii.
Yeah, and other realms, the LGS in Hawaii. Yeah, and I made a lot of really good friends through Magic too, which is something that I didn't really expect either, to kind of create my own little community at a local cafe. Yeah, and I still talk to them today. So, yeah, I mean, Magic has given me a lot for sure.
That is cool. And you mentioned to me that you just mentioned Commander, but you also draft or you play Limited. Is that the other thing you do?
I love Limited. Limited is probably, I fell in love with Magic through Commander, but Limited is what I don't really know how to describe it. Limited is amazing because it kind of brings in everything that I love about basketball into card games. And then the one-on-one aspect, the competitive aspect is super cool.
You have to elaborate more. Like, this is awesome. Like, how is this similar to basketball? Like, because I think of Magic as like puzzle solving, and obviously I've never played high level basketball other than pickup.
Right.
But like what is it about Magic and the similarities?
Okay, so I think the best way to do this is like when you're drafting, you're literally drafting like your own team or your own deck, and you have to like you have your bombs and then you have your support pieces to get to those bombs or have removal to play defense. And it's like similar to basketball. Like say on the national team, I don't know if you know these players, but maybe you do. The most recent window we have Yuki Togashi, Yuki Kawamura, Josh Hawkinson as probably our three super bombs that the other teams probably can't answer. They're like a planeswalker or something. And then
yeah,
in Limited, obviously, because those planeswalkers in Limited is stupid. But and then like you have your support pieces with like you either have me or you have like a Kalamata who are just supposed to get rebounds, connect the ball to them, play defense on the hardest on their bombs, make sure they're not working too hard, and make sure their usage percentage is always like probably way higher than mine, right? So basketball at a high level is really just puzzle solving and like space management, of trying to get your best players in the best position all the time, so you just screw over the other team and blow them out by 30. And then also putting yourself in the best position, because like I'm not a 3-point shooter, but I could always cut back door and get a dunk. And like Limited is the same way, where like you have to build your deck in a certain way or else it's just going to fall apart. Kind of way you have to build the team in the same way or else it's going to fall apart. And on top of that, for the one-on-one aspect, and then you're playing for prizes, it's kind of like basketball where it's like one-on-one, teams. And it was also a good outlet during surgery to like get my competitive juices flowing, because I couldn't physically do anything, but like going to the local game store and trying to grind out wins against like the local like sweaty people in Hawaii, because it's pretty spiky over there. Was really fun too. Yeah. And then last thing, there's obviously archetypes like aggression, like aggressive archetypes, tempo, and then mid-range. Each player, I think, in basketball falls under that line. I think, what's the limited resources guy's name?
Oh, Marshall Sutcliffe and LSD, right?
Marshall said this in a podcast. He said that your your competitive spirit, I guess, your competitive thing is reflected in Magic. Because I'm an
Mm-hmm.
aggressive player in basketball, and
Mm-hmm.
the best decks that I play are aggressive in limited and commander.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
um, that's also like a super cool thing that I saw relating to basketball on a personal level rather than like puzzle solving macro level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely Magic is great at just your personality comes through, right? Whether it's
Hmm.
in the colors or as you said, like the archetypes that you play. Personally, I love playing aggro as well or aggressive decks.
Hmm.
It's just like everyone has their own style, and obviously the best players in the world, someone like a Reed Duke or whoever, they can play amazingly with
Hmm.
all styles. But I think no matter what, no matter whether you're Reed or just yourself, right? Like you people have a preference,
Right.
right? So you people naturally skew towards something. It's also kind of like maybe sports too. It's like um there's a lot of players who make the NBA. Like everybody was a superstar before they made the
Hmm.
NBA in college
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
whatever, but then they have to play a role.
Yeah.
Then once they like once you're Gary Payton Jr. or like you have to find your way into a rotation, then you have to like figure out how can I add value.
Hmm.
And so I think that is really important as well. And I think in Magic, like sometimes you have to figure out what is the best way to play for a given metagame.
Yeah.
And so it's like maybe you're an aggressive player, but like the best thing to do right now is to play control or
Right.
adapt.
Right.
So
That's also another cool thing relating to Magic and basketball. The meta, FIBA and NBA obviously have like way different rules, right? And FIBA
Mhm.
favors the Rudy Goberts of the world rather than the NBA.
Oh yeah, because of the leniency for the goaltending or like what you can do. Is
That
that what you mean?
that and then
Or is it also the defensive like
yes,
offensive defensive penalties,
the
right?
defensive 3 second violation in the NBA doesn't exist in FIBA. So
Oh, so you could just really just roam.
yeah,
Like you could
Rudy Gobert just
you could
camps in the
okay.
paint
Yeah.
and just shuts down like the most efficient shot of basketball, which is the layup or the free throw,
Right.
because Rudy
Right.
Gobert doesn't really foul that much. So
Right. Right.
yeah, it's weird how like you see teams like adjust to the meta. Like France is pretty old school because they have a bunch of 7-4 superstars, and then Japan we have to just chuck threes just to even stay up, keep up with it.
Mm. Because of the size
Yeah.
or lack
Right.
thereof or like various
Yeah,
factors.
and we
right?
also have to
Yeah.
use like a lot of misdirection and run like
Yeah.
quickly and like a lot of plays with a lot of pace, so we get tired more quicker than like say a Rudy Gobert would on the France team. So it's
Mm.
weird. Different teams, different decks do different things to eventually get the win.
Was it, I mean, other than like coming back from the injury itself, was it hard like to adjust to playing
Hmm.
Japanese basketball? Like what's that process been like? Like playing in America or playing for like American colleges and then going to Japan? Like how's that transition been?
So American basketball to overseas basketball, I want to say the main difference I think is probably the skill level and the IQ that the players have on the court is way higher at the pro level than it is at the college level. But here in Japan, the really weird thing is the athleticism, even at the mid-major level in the US, I think, is probably a little higher than here at the pro level in Japan. So, yeah, that's the biggest thing that I've had to adjust to is like people, I can't do like little cheating, like I can't cheat on defense, so to say. I can't sag off my man too much and then like try to choke the post a little bit harder, get closer to the post, or maybe the star player has the ball and I can get closer to him to make sure it's clogged. But you can't really do that because usually my person's going to backdoor as soon as he sees it or hit the shot, hit the 3-point shot because he's a little bit more wide open, and it's you get more punished for taking shortcuts for sure. But
Mm-hmm.
my advantage is being quicker, faster, jump higher, run, yeah, and I'm pretty much like a mono red aggro player here. Is like I just run as hard
Okay.
as I can, and usually I score and get a lot of rebounds because of that.
Right.
And have like the
Right.
IQ part catch up later. Yeah.
Mm. Okay. What about like just playing basketball in general with obviously there's import players, but there's also your Japanese teammates. And I have to assume that even though you're half Japanese, like you didn't grow up like with all Japanese basketball players. So like what has that been like in terms of like gelling and just communication, all that stuff?
Right. So on my club team, the Ryukyu Golden Kings, communicating with the Japanese players is really hard because I'm not fluent in Japanese. I'm probably like a third or fourth grade level. So it's hard to like, I guess, bond more. I think that's also another big difference from American college to pro is in American college, you're just surrounded by these guys 24/7, live in the same dorms, go to the mess hall at the same time, just any college group of friends, right?
Yeah.
Here in the pros, like there's 30-year-old men with like real families or 36-year-old men with real families. So even with the American players, you can't really get close to them like that. But basketball is basketball. It's always one language that you're always speaking. Maybe different vocabulary, but everyone kind of gets where to go and what role you have to play pretty quick. And you just make marginal advances. You get marginally better as the season goes on in those roles.
Right.
Yeah.
What about working with the coaching, the coach and the coaching staff? Like what's that like? Because my terrible generalization of Asian or Japanese culture is that like at least corporations is that it's very hierarchical, right? And I would argue that sports is basically hierarchical as well, right? Unless you're in the NBA where you call the shots because you're the player. Yeah, exactly, right? I was gonna say you dictate exactly what happens, but 99% of the time that's not what happens in sports. But you also add the dimension of it being Japanese culture. What's that like?
It's different. This is a hard one, I think, because I've seen a lot of things done here in Japan that I don't think I could really get into on the podcast publicly, but
it's okay. Yeah, we're not going to try to put you on the spot. So whatever you're allowed to say, you know?
I mean, it's definitely hierarchical within like the coach and the staff itself. Like if the head coach doesn't go to something, then the staff can't go to it. Say it's like a get together and the head coach is like busy with his family or something, then the staff can't go because the head coach can't go. So in that way, it's very hierarchical.
Chain of command kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. But regarding like coaches and players relationships, obviously you listen to whatever the coach says. His decision's final, but luckily, like Coach Dai is very lenient with like, here's how your body's feeling. Very much a player coach, I would say. And then on the national team, Coach Hovis, he speaks English, so he's from America, so it's a lot easier to communicate with him what I'm thinking, how I see myself in the role of the Japan national team. Will I make the World Cup team or not? Who knows? Yeah. So it's these
fingers crossed.
But it's different in the way they interact with themselves, but with players and coaches, I think it's the same as the U.S. That's what I want to land on.
Yeah. Without being too incriminating, right. I get you. My words, not yours.
Yeah. I didn't say that.
Any fun stories from like with your teammates that you're allowed to share? Like any interesting or fun stories, or even like weird things that have happened, like while you're traveling or playing a game or like in the locker room, anything at all?
Anything at all? Weird stories. I mean, for me, it's always weird seeing like my teammates' kids run around the gym afterwards at the game. It's actually kind of jarring because, I mean, I can't really say this anymore because I'm 24. Not like a 21-year-old like Carl over there, but it's still like weird to me to see like all these guys who like I interact on a daily basis, like literally just went to the convenience store with Josh, and he's looking for pancakes for tomorrow's like breakfast. You know what I mean? Like totally normal like teammate stuff. And then you go to the games, and after the games, he shows up, and his wife and kids are there. And it's so jarring. I don't really know how to explain that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's weird. But that's just coming from
I guess guy. It's just like have different generations of players all in one team. Right? That doesn't happen really in college. We're all kind of around the same age.
Yeah, it doesn't happen in college, high school, AAU, anything like that growing up, and then turn pro and it completely changes. But that's for everyone.
Yeah.
Weird stories. There's a couple going through my head, but I'm not.
It's probably not good to put it out there in the public, right? Yeah.
I think a cool story at the Olympics was, obviously there's a guy named Gavin Edwards who's a Kika Senshu and Avi Schaefer, and we're just like hanging out at the mess hall. And I think it's a once in a lifetime thing because I'm obviously a sports fan too. So just seeing like the All Blacks from New Zealand. And then like they come up to us and we're obviously like we're lined up as I'm 6'9", Gavin's like 6'9", Avi's like 6'10", 6'11", just three massive Japanese dudes. And they come up to us and they're like, "Oh, what's up, guys?" in their New Zealand accents. And they're like, "What sports do you guys play? You know, are you guys like a bunch of rowers, a bunch of cyclers?" And we're just like, "All right, bro, like come on, stop messing with us. We're obviously like humongous human beings. There's only two sports we can really play, which is volleyball and basketball."
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. Like those guys over there, we thought they were basketball players too, but they're actually a bunch of rowers. And we look over there and like, what country was it? I don't even remember what it was. They had green jerseys on, but they're all like waving and then they stand up and they're all like 6'8", 6'9", just gigantic rowers.
Yeah,
I just thought that was pretty cool because I don't know, I love the All Blacks and they were talking and we got to hang out after that and have a little lunch at the Olympics, exchange pins, hear about like how hard the sport rugby is. But other than that, yeah, I don't really have any really good stories on the spot like that.
Okay. What about just things you've learned from your teammates, your current teammates, like anything at all? Whether it's basketball or life related, you know?
I think it's all about perspective, right? We have a guy like Josh Duncan on our team, 36 years old, been around the block to Europe, to Japan, played in the NBA a little bit. It's just all about perspective and like how young I really am in this game, and I want to do so many things so fast. It's just like, dude, you need to chill out. Because that's how I got hurt in the first place. Just having a little bit more patience, I guess. And I don't know, trust the process. I think that's like the biggest life lesson I've learned from like him, Jack, AD, is that they've been doing this for like 14, 15 years. So yeah, it's just like slow down, take a deep breath, let it come to you a little bit more, and don't try to like rush out and do everything all at once. Basketball wise, I think, yeah, knowing your own teammates and their strengths is probably like the biggest thing I've learned at the pro level, because that's really what it's all about, rather than like specific X and O's or anything like that. Just really scouting your own teammates and knowing every single thing about them on the court is probably going to get you way farther than like learning certain plays or anything like that.
You mean just knowing their tendencies and like how to best support them or like play alongside them? Okay.
Or even just knowing like that on like an individual level, or like what, you know, what makes your team get into the best possible position. What can you do to like make your team marginally better at that position than the other team? So always thinking about that. It looks different every time down the court. Yeah. And it's so hard because it's so context related, but that's why they're pros, and that's why we're pros, because you have to know how to make that snap decision at that moment, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, split second decision, as the cliche goes, right? Or like game of inches is the other cliche.
Mm-hmm.
Just like that's the difference between, I guess, success and failure,
Yeah,
in sports or something, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Whether you get signed next year or you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you mentioned that stuff about like learning, your strengths of your teammates and things like that. But how did you work on that? Like, was it like very intentional? Like, did you have like self-reflection? Like, was it through, because the question, I guess, started out by saying like, what'd you learn from your teammates? And you just observed that there are people who are really good at that and you wanted to try and follow in their footsteps, or what was it?
I see. That's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
Yeah.
It's really what I've been kind of wrestling with because, I'm 24 and like my time to be the next, Kevin Durant or the next, even Duncan Robinson or JJ Redick is kind of running out. So, what can I do? I don't know. I don't want to say realistically because realistically is kind of depressing. But like, what can I do right now to just be the best player possible? And it's like, I need to be a connector and get our best players in the best position possible, like a Draymond Green type. So yeah, you watch Draymond Green and some of his highlights, but I think the biggest thing is like constantly going over like situations of like, mental reps of like in-game stuff of like, okay, if Ko's here and I'm here, how do I get Ko going to his right? If Jack Cooley's down there and I'm in the same game as him, like how do I get out of his way? Stuff like that. And then like constantly learning about like where they want the ball and what they want to do and what positions they want to be in and get out of their way pretty much. Or put them in that position. I think it's just mental reps and game reps, obviously. So that when it does come, I'm not thinking about it. I'm just doing it. Yeah. The game's not playing me. I'm playing the game. Kind of like how Reed Duke said on your previous podcast with paper magic stuff. I found that really relatable. For
Yeah,
sure.
like when he said it's so developed that he doesn't have to think about it, right? Because then if you have to spend mental energy thinking about like putting one foot in front of the other, the mechanics of playing basketball or Magic, then it's hard to like go higher than that, right?
Yeah, it's hard to play at the level everyone else is playing at, or maybe you're not becoming your best self, like just going through the logistics and okay, I'll keep draw, do all my effects, rather than like run down. They call a play. I'm supposed to go here. Okay, I'm supposed to go there. That's it. Rather than like, okay, the defense is doing this, reacting to this play, like going the next step. And there's probably another step after that, but I don't know about it yet. So yeah.
The other thing you mentioned was in the first part of your answer was like just learning to be more patient. Have you always been more of an impatient person, whether it was in sports or otherwise? Like, how would you describe yourself in that way?
I think it's mostly patient. I think I'm pretty patient outside of sports. It's just when it comes to basketball, I've had years.
You're a different person?
Yeah.
Is that how it goes?
Maybe, but I think it's just because I've had years taken away from me with my injuries. So it's like I'm trying to catch up all the time, trying to be super hyperactive and just catch up. If I expend more energy than the other person, I'm going to catch up. And sometimes it just doesn't work like that. Yeah. But outside of basketball, I think pretty patient. I think you have to be pretty patient to play Magic.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know.
Speaking of playing Magic, like, have you tried playing Magic in Japan? Is that something that you've tried to do at all, or it's just been too busy?
I did try the first couple months, except I found out that like Japan's really, really, really spiky no matter where you go.
Okay.
Yeah, Commander's not really a thing here. They just love playing one-on-one and just trying to like beat the other person. I guess because the games are quicker.
Mm.
Um, I guess that kind of explains why Shota Yosoka is so good because everyone here is like ridiculously good at Magic. The limited scene here is kind of intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Different cultures doing different things with the same game.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I can share a little bit on my side. Like,
What's it like in
uh,
China?
in China, there are also some really good players, but there's a lot of commander players though, so it's not as spiky as Japan. I was gonna say from the part that I wanted to share was just like I did manage to play Magic in Japan before because I love playing a format for Magic called Legacy. It's kind of a eternal format, competitive format. And I went to Japan a few times before, obviously Tokyo and like lots of stores, right? I think the Haruya, yeah, you're Japanese, you can pronounce it better than I can. But also I played in like Eternal Weekend when there was, I think there was one that it was near Tokyo. I don't remember if it was like, I don't remember the city anymore, but it was like a fairly quick like train ride from Tokyo. And I remember
Osaka?
playing. It might have been. I'll have to dig it up. It was before COVID, so that felt like a lifetime ago. And what was really surprising for me, because it was the first time I played competitive Magic or a tournament in Japan, like the one thing that Japanese players do, you know this, right? Like you have to first like show them your sideboard cards face down. Right? That's like Japan is like the only country. I guess it's in the rule book of apparently, but I actually felt extra tired in that tournament because number one, because I had traveled and like I stayed at a capsule hotel overnight and I wasn't used to that. Oh, it was super clean, but it was also like very foreign to me, right?
Yeah, very cramped, very
yeah. But and also the language is kind of a cultural language barrier, but also like presenting the sideboard cards, and it was just like a whole bunch of extra things that I didn't expect.
Very much more formal over here. Like it's very even in the casual scene. Like I don't know if it's like this in China or whether you play in the U.S., but like in limited here, like they still do it by you count your 15 cards and then you do the timed rounds for each selection in the draft.
Yeah.
Even on like a casual Tuesday night where like we're not playing for anything. And that shocked me, like rather than like we just pick pass like in the States. So
yeah. It's everything is so formal in Japan, and it's nothing like that in China or Canada where I grew up. It's like I'm sort of like between cultures too, right? But China's much closer to North America than Japan, I would say. Japan is just like hyper formal, and like society takes itself. I'm gonna offend people, but like society takes itself like super seriously. Like convenience stores are dope because like everything like the Japanese do, they want to like execute it at a high level. They want to like be super professional at it. And yeah, I mean, I would have to assume that's been like also an adjustment for you, right? Just living there.
It's weird because they expect that from you outside of the court, but on the court they will give you every single excuse you would want if you would want to take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's different. Rather than America basketball, like if you don't perform, you have like, some Twitter user like 420 bagels commenting like, why are you playing so terribly? Like you're the worst basketball player ever,
Yeah.
Japan's the complete opposite, which is also really interesting.
Yeah.
So it's weird.
So you can mostly be yourself on the basketball court. It's just like once you're off the basketball court, then you're actually in Japan again.
Yeah. You have to be very majime. You have to be very serious. You can't be like seen like doing sketchy stuff.
No clowning around.
Yeah, I can't even go play Magic on Tuesday nights anymore because we have games on Wednesdays now. And then someone would take a picture, post it on Twitter, and then that'd be a huge scandal.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there's like a code of conduct or like unwritten etiquette or something.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
Like if you're not for the Kings and you're on the Kings, then we're not going to give you as many passes on the court. You know what I mean? So it's very much like we'll give you this if you give me that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also have spoken to friends who have lived in Japan because I didn't live in Japan. I've only visited, right, a couple times as a tourist. And they also mentioned the kind of like difficulty it is to integrate into Japanese society. Just like it's not necessarily a language thing. It's like even if you can speak Japanese, like they do feel sometimes that they are very much like the outsider. And I would argue that's true in a lot of places, including China. So I'm not trying to say like Japan's the only place or society that happens, but I also wonder about that. I don't know if you've experienced that, or it's a little different because you're kind of an athlete and you're just there playing basketball, right?
Right.
We're surrounded by a certain like infrastructure that's different. So
it's both ways. In Okinawa, basketball is so big that you are basically a celebrity on the island of Okinawa. But on mainland Japan, I turn in from like basketball player Hughes to like all of a sudden like I'm this super tall, white looking guy.
You're just the tall guy. Gaijin, is that what they call it?
The super tall gaijin. And then, I've been trailed by like police officers before. I've had like old like Japanese women just totally try to cuss me out because I was just a little too loud on the bus, or,
oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Just like, and then obviously the stares. People are always staring. Not in the good way either. Like, the kind of like the mean way.
just gawking at you, right?
Yeah. Either gawking or like giving you like a stink eye.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not 6'9", so I'm just a comfortable 6'0". So I mean, I'm not.
Oh, that's still pretty tall though. It's still pretty tall.
I'm still above average for like Asian standards, but I mean, it's different, right?
Yeah.
If you're 6'9", like you literally have to duck through doors and things like that. So
you're right, but. Yeah, in the States it's super normal, but like here's like mainland Japan especially, it's hard to integrate for sure. How's it like in China? I guess China there's so many people they just don't care.
I have a friend who does play like, I mean, he wasn't like a pro basketball player, but he was pretty tall. He's like a Chinese guy, Taiwanese like I am, and he's 6'4". And I remember he visited me in Beijing back when I was living in Beijing like a couple years ago, and people were openly gawking at him on the subway. So I can only imagine like if you're 6'9", right?
Right.
Like he was only 6'4". I mean that's already like, I don't know, like top 1 percentile for like Asian people or something. So for me, I don't feel anything, but I do know that most of the time in the subway I'm probably the tallest person on the train. But you're on another level. He's on another level.
Right.
And I also used to get weird stuff like this too. Like, like I would just talk to my friend in English while I was on the train. And then people would just look at me like, oh, this guy looks Chinese, but he's speaking English. Like, wow, what's going on? And that's less common now.
But you speak both fluently?
It's interesting. So I've lived in mainland China for about 10 years now, and I would definitely say my Chinese has gotten a ton better,
right?
Like in terms of becoming more fluent and listening. It took years though. It's just like organic, right?
Yeah.
Definitely in the beginning, I was like, I would say when I started living here like 10 years ago, I could maybe understand like 60% of what people were saying, but now it's more like 100%. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then speaking wise, it's obviously gotten better too. So now you're hearing everything and understanding everything and you could respond in real time.
My speaking and writing is still pretty limited, but I think for everyday conversational, it's totally fine. I would say I'm probably at like I don't know, like a 5th grade or 6th grade level Mandarin speaker. Okay. So that's enough,
Yeah. It's enough to get by.
Yeah. I often get confused for like being like more skilled because I don't have much of a an accent, or
Yeah.
I sound pretty natural when I speak, right? I don't know how it is for you and your Japanese. So
I have a little accent, but it's not enough for them to like catch it immediately. And then when they start
mm,
talking more, and then when I
mhm.
can't answer back because my vocabulary isn't that wide yet, or I don't have that big of a vocabulary, then it's like, then they figure it out like, oh, you don't know Japanese. So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
interesting.
yeah. That part is. Yeah, I mean, have you been able to make like good friends while you're in Japan? Is it like with your teammates, or like has that happened, or?
Mm, I mean, with my teammates, it's such like a professional setting that I wouldn't say like I'm really good friends with them. Obviously friends, but like not really good
Mhm,
friends. And I just haven't had a lot of time because I got here in December,
mhm.
um, and the national team stuff picked up on mid-February, so I didn't have a lot of time to like really integrate myself in the Magic community. I'm part of like a group of people that play Commander Wednesdays and Sundays, but that's when I play my games. So it's like,
Yeah.
damn, you
Oh,
know,
I gotta pick basketball. So.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I'm not as good as like Reed Duke, where I could just like make money off of playing Magic.
That's really hard.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's really hard.
yeah. Do you play competitively still?
Just a little bit. I'll
Mm.
be honest. I spend most of my time like doing this podcast and actually playing Magic. So it's
Oh,
like I talk about Magic or with other people more than actual Magic. But I do
right.
play a little bit online still.
Uh-huh.
Like I play on Magic Online.
Oh, Moto.
And one of my goals this year is to actually play more Magic.
Hmm.
Like I just feel like I kind of lost that last year, especially with like COVID and like these crazy lockdowns in Shanghai where I am.
Right.
It wasn't hard. It wasn't easy to play paper Magic last
Hmm.
year, but now that things are kind of back to normal,
Hmm.
like I definitely want to do more because I've just kind of figured out that at this point in my life, like I don't have any aspirations to become like a Reed Duke or anything, but
Right.
I just really want Magic to be like a good hobby, right? A good outlet.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not like I've shifted like from I used to play more basketball and I've sort of peaked and I'm old and I'm just now like a long distance runner and I play
Mm.
Magic because you can never get injured long distance running. Like like I can't compare myself to you, but um all the injuries I ever had in my life were like from playing basketball,
Yeah.
like contact sport
Yeah.
basically. And I can count on like two fingers, like the times I got injured, like running,
Yeah.
because it's just like I just love running now. It's just like um,
How long do you run?
I try to do like in kilometers. So that I don't use miles. Sorry, I'm not
Right. Yeah,
American.
that's true. That's true.
I try to do like 10, 15 kilometer runs. Like
Oh,
sometimes I do like 20 kilometers. I like long
oh my
distance.
God.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
That
God.
I get really into
That's
like the
crazy.
flow state when I'm running, man.
Right.
No, I mean you shouldn't say that. You're an athlete, so it's like you probably do that anytime, right? So
No, it's no.
it's different, right? Because basketball is like fast twitch muscles, and
Basketball is
yeah.
twitch muscles, and we get like pseudo 5 second breaks during the game every once in a
Hmm.
while, and there's stops and
Hmm.
starts. Like straight running is hard. Especially for like someone who's 6'9", like it's very hard on my body, especially running on
Yeah,
concrete.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I'm,
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. But yeah, I know because I heard people say like running is hard on the joints, right?
yeah,
So yeah.
it's very hard on like yeah, unless you're an experienced runner like yourself, like where you're running 20 miles and like your body's like built for that. It would take a
Oh
lot
no,
of
not 20 miles, just
or
like
20 kilometers,
13
20 kilometers,
miles.
20
Yeah, 20
kilometers.
kilometers. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
um, it would take a long time for my body to get to like where your level's at, where it wouldn't just be like straight injuries after like the first three, first 3 miles.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
because
But you know, I'm a huge proponent of like they call it LSD, like long slow distance, where you're just really trying to like not overexert, and you're just really trying to like it's just aerobic, so it's just like it's more about like just doing it for a long time.
Right.
Rather than like sprinting or like having bursts. I am not an athlete at all, so I mean I cannot dunk. Maybe that's one thing I should try to do is like one day like be able to dunk or work my way up to it. But it's like that part of my life is over. So it's like I just stay on the ground and I just take little steps. That's kind of what I do.
Hey, yeah. I mean, if the zombie apocalypse were to happen tomorrow, you would have a higher chance of surviving than me because you would be able to run super long distance away from them, and I would get tired and just get eaten alive and provide them with that.
I don't know, man. If you have longer arms, you can kind of like keep them at bay while I just get crushed by some zombie that came up behind me. So I don't know. I think you probably have some advantages too. So
yeah, probably pros and cons to everything, right?
Yeah.
That's super cool that you want to do like competitive Magic. I'm way too busy with basketball, but I would also want to get into competitive Magic one of these days. But like you play Legacy, and there's obviously Modern and Pioneer, and that whole meta with all those cards available seems a little overwhelming to me.
No, it's actually like, yeah, there's a big card pool, but people complain about those formats too, because the complaint is really like, well, there's still going to be like the dominating cards, right? Because like maybe there's like a million creatures, but then you figure out like there's 10 of them that are actually, you know, super high tier. Yeah. It's kind of like okay, I have no analogy to basketball, but it's like it'll be like, you know, like, oh, there's there's a shoe now from a shoe company you never heard of, and I'll still go back to the Nike because it's like that's tried, tested, and true, and it's the best one, right? You know, so
that is true.
So it's fun too. I would encourage people, if you're listening. I mean, I would encourage you, but also people listening to this to like just try out different things, because like one thing I had to do over time was I would get burned out of like playing one format too much, and so it's nice to be able to. I think draft is fine though, because draft, it's always changing. There's new sets, so it's like you're always on your toes and like learning new things.
I guess a little bit, but
exactly. And yeah, so I think that's a good format. It's limited, just like it's probably the most skill intensive format, right? And then Commander is obviously more of a casual format. It's more like playing a board game with like 3 other friends or something.
That's true. So, that is 100% true. You think Limited is the most skill intensive?
I think it is,
compared to like Legacy or Modern.
Yeah, because I've talked to a lot of people through the podcast, and like if you talk to some of the more like world-class players or the world-class players like Reed or Brian Kibler, it's like a lot of them will just tell you like straight up like Limited is their favorite format because it's the most skill intensive.
That's interesting.
I'll take their word for it, you know. So if you play Limited, that still means you can be very competitive. In fact, I've had people tell me, like pro players, like they wish the pro tours could just be all Limited, right? Because to them that would actually be more skill testing. So
that's actually mind blowing to me, because I always thought like Modern, Legacy, or Vintage was more skill intensive, because the first 3 turns you're making crazy decisions that determine the game. And then Limited, if you just open like 3 bombs, I feel like, and you build around it well enough, you could putt your way through a 3-0. But then again, I'm just a casual basketball player. What do I
know? Casual Magic player, you should say. Serious basketball player.
Serious basketball player.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, actually.
I mean, it's just other people's perspectives, right? Like, I don't know 100% if it's like factually true or not, but I think that's the wonderful thing about like basketball or Magic, is that people put their own spin on it, right? Like if you ask somebody like who's the best player in the world, like in the NBA or whatever, or like who's the best coach, like you get different answers, right? There's no definitive.
Who's your GOAT, James?
I'll just put it out there, man. I think it's LeBron. I really think it is. I think when I think when he came back from that deficit in the finals against Golden State, right, when he was on the Cavaliers, I think that made him go from. Of course, Harrison Barnes started missing a lot of shots in that series for some mysterious reason, but I feel like there's series like that where it's just like, yeah, I mean, sure, you could say Michael Jordan could have come back down in that series or whatever, right? But I just feel like LeBron's body of work, and for doing it so long and still being the athlete he is at his current age, right? I think that says something.
Yeah.
And I don't really like. The last thing I'll say about this part is like, I know people hate on him for like the decision and like all the things that he did over the years, but I feel like that's just making the best use of the environment that he's in. Yeah, like I don't begrudge him for doing that. Right. I for example, I'm a LeBron fan, but I'm a KD hater because like to me they still did things differently despite kind of doing it like the same way in the big picture, right. But I still feel like LeBron like instantly made his teams better, and he just didn't quit on his teams like the way that maybe some of the modern superstars would now. So yeah, that's my answer. Yeah, that was a really long-winded answer. But what about you? Who's your GOAT?
I think like kind of like how all the pro players said limited's like the most skill intensive. I find like a lot of athletes say Michael Jordan just because of the 6-0.
Yeah.
But like for me personally, it has to be LeBron James because he's the greatest scorer of all time. He has longevity. He's like the most consistent over those 20 seasons that he's doing right now. Maybe he doesn't have the championships to back it up and people side on him for the decision, but like I think basketball and like sports is the only industry where like you get hated on for making the best decision for yourself.
Like for being the like for example in other industries, it's like if you go find a better paying job, like a better title or something, like nobody hates you for it, right? You become a CEO of another company. Yeah. It's like good for you. But in basketball or in sports, it's somehow
loyalty
different.
Yeah.
And there's this sort of like pretend purity about the sport.
Yeah.
And also people talk about how LeBron his conversion percentage when he goes to the finals is like not as good as Michael's or somebody else, and I'm just like, dude, it's about how many shots you take. Like, does that really matter? Like, are people gonna like look back on his career like 20 years from now and be like, you know what, LeBron James like only like won the title, 6 out of 15 times he was in the finals. Like, does that really matter?
Went to the finals 15 times.
Like, I don't actually know the numbers. I have no idea. I just pulled those numbers out arbitrarily.
It's 11 or 12 at this point, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% either, but he's just over 20 seasons, and then he's going to play like 5 more at least because his son Bronny has to make the NBA first.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. That's going to be history, right? Yeah. Either on the same team or just playing against each other.
And only LeBron James can do that at like age 43 and still contribute. I guess the only one who's ever come close is Kareem or Vince Carter. But no, he's a GOAT. Assists, rebounds, scoring.
Yeah.
Best basketball player of all time. It's LeBron James. Yeah.
I'm glad that we're in agreement.
Yeah.
And also like I was asking my friends about this. I want to ask you, how long do you think it's going to take for the scoring record to be broken by somebody else in the future?
So there's like I just watched a YouTube video on this by this YouTuber called Jimmy High Roller, and like what LeBron James has done in 20 seasons, and you map that out to like who's coming in, who's like comparing him to like Luka Doncic, John Morant, all like the super young stars that could potentially catch him, and you put it on a graph, LeBron James is like all the way over here, rising exponentially in his first couple of years. And here's everyone else because of, load management, injuries,
Hmm.
personal problems. Like people don't understand how like LeBron James played every game and scored like 30 to 40 points as a 19-year-old and how
Hmm.
insane that looks even in today's NBA with all like the scoring that's happening now and how offenses are
Yeah, yeah. They say
evolving.
it's easier than ever to score in the NBA. I'm not sure if that's like a generalization, but it certainly feels that way from the scores, right?
Yeah, I think it's just the players that are getting better. NBA is becoming more of a make or miss league and everything
Hmm.
else kind of doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Yeah, but that's besides the point. Like LeBron James just doing that at age 19, 18, 20, and being that good at that early and still being that good at age 38. And he's still going to be relatively that good at age 42, 43. At
Yeah.
age 43, LeBron's still probably going to be averaging like 18 to 23 points per game. It's
Hmm.
ridiculous. So it's not going to be broken. Um, he's supposed to, if he plays up until Bronny, he's supposed to end up with like 45,000 points.
Hmm.
And maybe Victor Wembanyama could break it, but he's also 7'4" with the size 21 shoe. And that has a history of just breaking down and getting injured a lot. So, yeah,
Yeah.
you need like a,
I think it's more a question like, is it possible that it will never be broken? Like, or maybe in the future when NBA players can play up to like 50 because of technology, maybe then it could be broken.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be broken, but I think it's going to be like Kareem's record where it just stands for such a long time because LeBron James is literally a once in a lifetime kind of player.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if you think the same way, but that's definitely where I'm at.
I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't call him the GOAT, right?
That's true. That's true.
I'm sorry for people listening to this. I am not a LeBron hater. I'm just very practical, and I just have to respect what he has done. So, yeah. But going back to you, Hugh, what does the future look like for you, just in terms of? Because I know you've studied. Did you study business? Is that what you did in college,
I
or?
got my finance degree, and then I did 1 year of an MBA program, but then hated it, so I went pro. Um,
Okay, okay. What was it that you absolutely hated about the MBA
I just
program?
think grad school in general, you have to be very passionate about what you're getting your degree in, or else you feel like you're dying on the inside. And that's what it kind of felt like. It felt like a bunch of people who are a lot more passionate than me around me. And it's not a knock on them,
Mhm.
it's more of a knock on me. And I just felt like either I was bringing the program down or I wasn't getting as much as I wanted out of it. Um, yeah, yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
probably that.
I
Yeah.
get you. Yeah,
So turn pro
I
instead
get you.
because it's more passionate about basketball.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
So the question of like, where do you want to be like in 3 to 5
Hmm.
years? Like, how would you answer that?
See, this is also this is a hard question right now because the past 2 years I've only been thinking of I just want to get back to the court because I've been
Yeah.
injured. Um, I guess recently I really do want to make the World Cup team for Japan and be one of the 12 members on the Japan national team, and hopefully improve enough to where like I don't have to scrape my way onto the team, like barely get in, be the 12th guy in. I'd rather be like, you know, the seventh, sixth guy. That's like the next step. Um, but that's basketball wise. Obviously, I really like it here in Ryukyu. If I could stay here longer, it's amazing. The arena is amazing. The fans are amazing. The basketball is really good. Um, they treat me really, really well here. So I would like to stay here. And then on the business front, hoping to set up my own business and get into like real estate and, stocks and make sure I'm not like a broke basketball player. afterwards.
Yeah, I guess you don't want to end up like, oh man, why is his name suddenly popping to my head? Like Antoine
Yeah,
Walker or
yeah.
something. I
Don't
don't
want to
know.
end up like, no,
Yeah,
don't want to do that at all.
yeah. You gotta manage your
Yeah,
money well. You gotta do that
exactly.
at
That's
least.
why I
Yeah,
chose finance.
yeah. Not. You can't have too many baby mamas, or like you have to be
Yeah,
responsible.
exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. Um, yeah. My current girlfriend would kill me. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. And then, I don't know, in 3 to 5 years, I just want to be having fun, really. Life's too short not to have it. So,
Hmm.
playing fun basketball, doing magic, investing, treating my family right, having friends, just living a fulfilling life and being grateful for it. I think that's the biggest goal.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Well, Hugh, thanks for taking the time
Uh,
to chat, man.
thank
It's
you.
yeah, it's been so much fun. Like I don't usually get a chance to talk so much about
Right.
basketball, and I love it. I am a spectator
Hmm.
purely, but it's really good to like find out about some of the similarities, in terms of playing basketball and playing
Hmm.
Magic, and also get a little bit of glimpse into who you are as a person. So thank you for doing that. And who knows, maybe in the future I'll be able to meet you in Japan or Hawaii or wherever it is. That would be also very very
Yeah.
cool. So
Anytime. If you're ever in Okinawa, obviously, like, if you ever want tickets to a game, I got you 100%. Um, but yeah, no, just thank you for having me on here. And yeah, it's been a really cool experience.